Welcome to Raw History, where we cut through romanticization and speculation to show you the unfiltered reality of human history. A Roman legionary on campaign carried approximately 20 kilograms of equipment on his back, earning soldiers the nickname Marius's mules after the general who reformed the army in 107 BCE. Within that load, 3 days of grain rations, roughly 3 kilograms of wheat or barley, represented the difference between an effective fighting force and a starving mob. Archaeological evidence from military camps along Hadrian's Wall and the Vindolanda tablets, dated between 85 and 122 CE, reveal precise accounting of food distribution. A legionary required approximately 3,000 calories daily to sustain marching 25 to 30 kilometers while carrying full equipment. The standard ration centered on grain, supplemented by salt pork, olive oil, vinegar, and salt. This wasn't gourmet dining, it was calculated fuel for a military machine. The logistical mathematics became staggering at scale. A single legion of 5,000 men consumed 15 metric tons of grain weekly. When multiple legions campaigned together, as during Trajan's Dacian wars from 101 to 106 CE, daily consumption reached astronomical levels. Military records from Egypt, preserved on papyri, document supply requisitions that show quartermasters calculating months in advance. The challenge wasn't simply feeding soldiers for a week or month. It was sustaining armies for years-long campaigns in territories where local agriculture couldn't support sudden influxes of thousands of mouths. Success required not just acquiring food, but preserving it through extreme conditions, from the scorching deserts of Mesopotamia to the frozen Rhine frontier. Underground supermarkets, grain silos, and the art of aspiration, the architectural remains of Roman horrea, military granaries, stand as monuments to engineering brilliance applied to food storage. Excavations at the legionary fortress of Diva Victrix, modern Chester in Britain, reveal granaries with raised floors supported by rows of pillars, creating air circulation channels beneath stored grain. These weren't accidents of design. Roman military engineers understood that grain spoilage resulted from moisture and heat, so they engineered solutions addressing both simultaneously. The raised floors kept grain away from ground moisture while allowing constant air movement. Walls featured strategically placed ventilation slots, creating cross breezes that regulated temperature and humidity. The aspiration technique represented perhaps the most sophisticated preservation method. By controlling airflow through grain storage, Romans created low-oxygen environments that inhibited insect activity and fungal growth without any chemical intervention. Analysis of carbonized grain samples from the destroyed fortress at Inchtuthil, abandoned in 86 to 87 CE when construction suddenly ceased, shows wheat preserved in near-perfect condition for nearly 2 millennia. The grain had been stored using techniques that essentially created natural modified atmosphere storage, a principle not rediscovered until the 20th century for commercial food preservation. These installations operated at massive scale. The Horrea Galbae in Rome, built during Augustus's reign and expanded under later emperors, could store approximately 150,000 metric tons of grain. Military horrea operated on smaller but still impressive scales. A typical legionary fortress granary held sufficient grain to feed its garrison for a full year, even if supply lines were completely severed. Archaeological evidence from sites along the Danube frontier shows multiple granaries per fortress, suggesting Romans maintained reserves beyond immediate needs, creating strategic buffers against crop failures or military setbacks. Meat, wine, and vinegar, portable provisions for the march. Grain provided calories, but Roman military diet included preserved proteins that modern analysis reveals were nutritionally calculated. Salt pork, mentioned repeatedly in the Vindolanda tablets, underwent curing processes that archaeological experiments have successfully replicated. Pork was packed in ceramic vessels, called dolia, with layers of salt creating brine as moisture leached from the meat. This method, verified through residue analysis of Roman-era containers, could preserve meat for years. Excavations at military supply depots show amphorae stamped with contents and dates, some indicating pork preserved 5 years before final distribution. Dried and smoked meats provided portable protein. References in military correspondence describe bacon and dried sausages that soldiers carried during extended patrols. These weren't luxury items, but calculated nutrition. Fats provided concentrated calories, while proteins maintained muscle mass during physically demanding campaigns. Chemical analysis of residues from military cooking pots at frontier forts shows evidence of long-simmered stews combining preserved meats with grains, creating complete nutritional profiles from preserved ingredients. Wine served triple duty as morale booster, caloric supplement, and water purification agent. Roman soldiers received a daily wine ration called the esitum, when wine was available, or posca, wine mixed with water and sometimes herbs. The alcohol content, while lower than modern wines, provided antimicrobial properties that made questionable water sources safer. Amphorae recovered from Roman shipwrecks, like the Madrag de Gian vessel that sank around 60 BCE, carrying wine to military garrisons, show how wine moved across the empire in sealed ceramic containers that preserved contents for months during maritime transport. Vinegar emerged as perhaps the most versatile preservation agent. Roman texts describe vegetables preserved in vinegar-based brines, creating pickled foods that provided vitamins and flavor variety. Pliny the Elder's Natural History, completed in 77 CE, documents numerous preservation techniques using vinegar. Military accounts mention soldiers using vinegar to preserve fresh-caught fish during campaigns, extending protein availability between supply deliveries. The dark side of sustenance in the Roman world was, well, really something. Roman military logistics didn't operate through neutral commercial exchange. Instead, the system functioned on compulsory requisition powers that honestly devastated local populations. When Julius Caesar campaigned in Gaul from 58 to 50 BCE, his Commentary de Bello Gallico actually documents seizing entire harvests from conquered tribes. Now, this wasn't considered theft in Roman legal thinking. It was regarded as the price of conquest. Communities that resisted these requisitions faced systematic destruction. For example, Caesar's siege of Alesia in 52 BCE included expelling non-combatants from the city to strain food supplies, a tactic that ultimately condemned thousands to starvation between the Roman lines and the Gallic walls. Military law regarding food supplies, well, it operated with brutal efficiency. The Digest of Justinian, compiled in 533 CE but drawing on centuries of earlier Roman legal precedent, actually prescribes death penalties for soldiers stealing from supply trains. Camp prefects who allowed spoilage through negligence faced execution too. This wasn't seen as excessive harshness. It simply reflected the existential reality that army survival depended on food security. Historical accounts even describe entire units decimated, literally having 1 in 10 men executed, when supply failures resulted from negligence rather than enemy action. The environmental impact of Roman military consumption, left clear archaeological traces. Pollen analysis from regions surrounding major military installations shows dramatic declines in tree species used for firewood and construction, which were replaced by agricultural crops as the Romans restructured local economies to feed their garrisons. Studies of Roman-era sites in North Africa reveal soil depletion patterns, consistent with the intensive grain cultivation demanded by military requirements, contributing to long-term ecological changes that, in fact, persisted centuries after the Roman withdrawal. The legacy of the Roman larder, really echoes through the centuries. as a testament to ancient ingenuity. Roman preservation techniques directly influenced later military logistics. For example, Napoleon's Grande Armée actually studied Roman supply methods when planning their continental campaigns. The development of canning in the early 19th century, while using new technology, addressed the same fundamental challenge that the Romans solved with salt, vinegar, and controlled storage, preserving food for armies on the move. Nowadays, modern military meals ready to eat, or MREs, are a technological evolution of the very same principles Roman quartermasters implemented 2,000 years earlier. The horrea system's architectural principles, interestingly enough, influenced warehouse design right into the modern era. The concept of raised floors for air circulation, ventilation for temperature control, and systematic inventory management all originated in Roman military storage and then spread throughout medieval and early modern Europe. Even grain storage facilities built in 19th century America incorporated design elements that are directly traceable to Roman engineering transmitted through centuries of institutional knowledge. Perhaps the most enduring legacy, if you think about it, lies in supply chain management itself. Roman military logistics required coordination across thousands of kilometers, multiple production centers, varied transport methods, and complex accounting systems. The administrative infrastructure managing these supply networks actually established organizational principles that are studied in modern business schools today. The concept that armies, and by extension any large organization, move on their stomachs originated in Roman military practice, verified through preserved military correspondence and archaeological evidence. If this examination of Roman military logistics has revealed how empires built success on the, unglamorous foundations of food preservation and supply management, then do subscribe to Raw History for more evidence-based explorations of historical reality. And, share this with anyone who believes ancient civilizations were primitive. Sometimes the most advanced thinking appears in solving basic human needs at a massive scale.